first of all, thanks a lot for all the attendees joining the webinar at this point of time. I'm sure we all have a full-time day jobs, and then during the end of the day, taking this time is really, really appreciated. I'm sure all of you are looking forward for either a career change or trying to learn more about building the products, and that's really and exactly what we're going to focus our next 30 minutes on. And before I actually jump into the presentation, many thanks to the Institute of Product Leadership, because almost 10-12 years ago, when I started as a product manager in Silicon Valley, there were not many institutes or training folks that would actually teach you and take you through the art of building products. So that basically meant that we all had to learn really by the art of doing it. And there was nothing really like a theory and a practice behind somebody getting into the product management. Of course, we all had MBA degrees, but MBA degree can only take you so far. But really building the products is the only way that somebody can become a good product manager. So from that point of view, I really appreciate what Institute of Product Leadership is doing, both in India as well as in US that way. So without further ado, let me start. Menka, maybe you need to unshare the screen and then I will share the screen as well.
Yeah, done.
Sounds good. Sorry, just one quick time. Are you able to see the presentation?
Not yet. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
So first of all, just to make sure, I'm Suresh. I'm a product builder and a startup advisor. That's really my identity that way. And please feel free to reach out to me on the LinkedIn or on Twitter. I really love to chat up with product folks. It doesn't really matter which technology, it doesn't really matter which domain, but everything is fair in product management and product development that way. And very quickly about myself, I definitely came with engineering background. I have a computer science degree and an MBA. And during the initial 8 years of my engineering effort, I did a lot of embedded programming. I mean, some of you may not even know at this point of time, but it's really about the whole of the Perl, the XML, XSLT, whatnot, and then real-time operating systems, and all those kind of crazy things. And then later on is when I completely moved into the sort of business, products, pricing, go-to-market strategy, and then came into the product management area. So the good thing about where my experience come from and where I learned a lot is I was with 2 startups, and then the 2 startups got acquired by bigger companies. And that really gave me a lot of inspiration on how to build the products that scale, that are valuable, and then really take it to the market in a way that either the company can grow bigger or the company is really in a stage where it can help the bigger companies to achieve their goals. That's really by my work experience, really where I'm coming from. And in the process of that, I definitely worked in multiple vertical domains in a way where automotive is where I really started. The simple things like the adaptive cruise controls that many cars today have, for example, they're all the software that I helped code and implement from that point of view. And then utilities industry, construction. So when you look at all these vertical and domains, one might think, oh, you know what? They're very traditional type of industries. But when you think about it for a moment, that's exactly where a lot of technology help is needed to really make them modern. For example, how many of us really like the water meters or the electricity consumption, where somebody have to really literally come to the apartment complex or our homes to really understand what is the starting meter reading, what is the ending meter reading. But that is exactly where the concept of the smart meters, the Internet of Things really comes into the picture. And we're really proud from Oracle and several other companies where we have contributed from the technology standpoint to several of these industries that way. And of course, I also work on the horizontal technologies, which is really the cloud, the SaaS, what we call today. The Internet of Things is something that I am very passionate about, as well as very close to. And in the process of that, blockchain and IoT and AI, they really complement each other in many of these vertical industries that way. And last but not least, I have authored a couple of books really out of my own interest. I'm a big blogger, especially from the point of view that when you know something, when you write something, there is a lot of introspection, and you go through a lot of learning when you actually put something of your thoughts in writing. So that's really where I see the value of blogging. If I encourage all of you also to really learn, whether from your work experience standpoint or you are learning something new, always go out there. There are a lot of nice blogging platforms these days. The simple enough is your LinkedIn profile. Just start blogging. That really gets you keep thinking about what is the topic, how can I research, what do I learn, and how do I make a particular learning useful for everybody, right? And I, of course, teach with product school here in San Francisco from the last couple of years, and I've also been a mentor for the product mentor out there. So one of the reason I'm giving you this background is, of course, I mean, my learnings, there is always learnings that comes from a context and what people have experienced throughout their professional life. So that is exactly what I wanted to give you, so that you understand my learnings, where they're coming from. So coming to the real thought of the day today, which is innovation at the speed of thought. One very important as well as a profound statement from Steve Jobs is, if you really look at things closely, most overnight success takes a long time, right? So many of the companies, I'm sure if you are following, whether they go to the IPOs or whether the small startups get acquired by the big companies, it doesn't really happen one night or 1 month or 1 year, but it is the effort of several years culminated and gets resulted in a bigger value, and then that gets translated into the acquisitions or IPOs, right? And so is exactly the innovation. So we can't expect to develop products and also innovate overnight within one particular release, within 1 month, within one particular week. But it's really a thought process that goes on within a team, within the product management, within the engineering teams, within the management teams, to really come through this idea of what does really innovation mean for us? Does it mean really using a IoT technology for the sake of using the technology? Or are we really trying to solve a particular user problem? So as much as everybody understands the importance of looking at the innovation from the perspective of solving a problem, but most companies, wrongfully so, focus on innovating with technology for the sake of using it, but without really solving a problem for the user that you're really trying to sell or service your product. And that's exactly where many companies struggle to either capture the market share or grow in the market. And that's exactly where we will spend next of our 30 minutes really discussing. So the way I structured this 30 minutes is really to say what I have done in the last 6 years. And then there are a bunch of learnings that I went through innovating products. So please do think of them as a kind of framework that everybody can think through, look at different ways of looking at the product and different life cycle and stages. And I'm sure that will help you to really understand and think through and help you to make decisions that are better suited for everybody. So I was actually working for a small company called Skype here in Menlo Park, California. And after 1.5 years of me working there, one fine day, I really see that, okay, Oracle acquires Skype. So think of the solution set as it's really about the project management solutions. I'm sure most of you who is aware of the Asana, Basecamp, and those kind of products, it really helps you to keep things in one place, but more from the IT centric. But when you think about multi-billion-dollar projects that goes on across the world, that is really where you need to bring together how do we manage costs, how do we manage resources, how do we manage schedule, how do we manage risk, how do we manage the portfolio of the projects that are happening within a company. So that's exactly where we sort of played from the SaaS point of view. And we've been a SaaS leader. The Skyr has been a SaaS leader at that point of time in the construction, oil and gas, and aerospace and defense, and public infrastructure projects and whatnot. So the opportunity was enormous from the SaaS point of view, but because we were a startup, we could only penetrate into the market so much within US and Australia at that point of time. So with the Oracle acquisition, when you really think about it, we've got the branding for sure, but at the same time, the outreach from the partners, from the sales point of view, and also the ability to really combine multiple products and provide a suite of products for the customers that way. And the biggest question after a series of acquisitions, like any other big company, is to say, we need to really think through, okay, we have acquired all these companies, but what does it really mean from the business strategy point of view? So for us, after the acquisition, it really came down to saying, okay, we want to make sure that SaaS is the new way of doing the business. Again, probably today, we all take SaaS for granted, but this is really around 2011 time where the whole of the on-premise software is still there, and then the companies are slowly transforming into the SaaS in that sense. And of course, from the company's point of view, we want to increase the revenue, and then we want to make sure from the product and operation standpoint, we want to increase the margins as well. And of course, and then also make sure that we want to meet the customer demands, especially in these traditional industries where the change happens very slow, but at the same time, the technology innovation is going at such a fast pace. We want to make sure that we provide the right things for the customers. And when we combine that business strategy, then we get into what we call as the product strategy, which is to really say, product strategy, of course, I mean, we shouldn't be at the product strategy simply start talking about what is the feature and function, because that really gets into too nitty-gritty details. But it's really talking about what kind of products are we really looking at? Is there a way for us to consolidate the products? And what is the effect of these newer technologies that we are looking at, whether it is the SaaS platforms like the Oracle Cloud or Google Cloud or AWS, and how are our customers trying to use these technologies, as well as how do we make sure that the sales cycles and the implementation cycles gets shorter. I'm sure, probably some of you who are in B2B enterprise area, once you release a product, um, it can go out there as a general availability, but at the same time, it's very important for the customers to really uptake these products, to implement with the consulting team or in-house IT team, so that there is a lot of all these business process management happens. So the idea really from the product strategy point of view is, what are the different ways in which we can shorten these sales cycles, as well as help customers adopt these technologies, probably not within a couple of months, but within a week. So that's really where the product strategy came in. And as a result of that, we went through several brainstorming sessions, and then finally came up with 4 pillars on which our products should really live on, which is really your cloud, integration, social, mobile. So when you really think about it, the enterprise space again has lagged for some time, and didn't really catch up really from the sort of consumer standpoint. So that's really where these pillars really made huge sense for us, because when you think about it, with the era of the Facebook, Snapchat, WhatsApp and whatnot, people really want to sort of text offline, offline conversations, and then whenever you have some time, you can reply back to those conversations. And that's exactly what even the enterprise customers really need when you think about it, where you may not be online with your system today, but then the moment you log into the system, you should be able to see that somebody has requested for a approval, and quickly do it right from within your social feed standpoint. And of course, mobile, I'm sure all of us know, it has become integral part of our life, and any interactions that you can make mobile and then add value, that is really where mobile really helps a lot. And of course, the one caveat for the mobile is, just because we have the mobile app and then we have the technology to develop something, never ever try to replicate the product that is there on the desktop onto the mobile, because that is a very bad choice. But really think from the user standpoint, if somebody has a mobile, what are the things that they can look at mobile? How can they use the mobile in terms of, is it for the approvals? Is it for data consumption? For example, in that case, it would be small dashboards or reports that they want to see on the mobile. So is it for the executive users? Is it for the people who are actually doing the job? So there are multiple things that you can think through when we are developing the mobile application. So this has become really our central theme for the next generation platform. And over the next 3.5 years, we spent really a lot of time in developing this, what we call as the project success platform. And in the next 20 minutes or so, all the insights that I'm sharing with you from the innovation standpoint is really coming out of the execution of this particular product suite for almost about 3.5 years. Right. Finally, we generated something called as Oracle Primavera Cloud, and it is a suite of products with all these technologies and ideas that has come together. So now coming to the lessons learned and how the innovation really comes through. So there were multiple things that we had to dabble through. I personally had to look into what does it really mean. For example, are we really talking about if I have to work with drones so that they can fly in when a construction happens, it can take pictures and it can take a video, but then do we call it a proof of concept or minimum viable product, right? So as much as it sounds like a very simple decision, but it actually has a huge impact from the stakeholder standpoint. Stakeholders, what I mean is whether it is for your internal management or for the customers, the moment you say it is a proof of concept, then the expectation is very much different compared to when you say it is a minimum viable product. Then your marketing teams, your sales teams, your customers do expect a certain type of maturity to your product, so that they can actually take it and start using it. Versus when you say it is a proof of concept, you're really trying out the use case, you're really trying out the technology, if it works or not. So which is lesser impactful from the expectation standpoint. So those are the small things that you need to really look into, but have a pretty huge impact. The other major implication is when we really look into building products, we need to really think about, is it really a product that we are selling to the customer, or is it a solution that we are selling it to the customer? Because what happens is, if it is a product, the expectation is the customer would simply take in the product as though it is a silo that I can use right away. But whereas if it is a solution, then we're really thinking in terms of saying, how do I bring this, my business process in a way that I can take help of this product? So in which case, maybe there is a lot of business process analysis that happens with the customer. They need to bring in a lot of business analysts so that they can think through all these scenarios and then finally design those business processes in the product that you provide, right? So from that standpoint, it's not really a product at that point of time, but you're really providing the solution to the customer. Because the moment you give a product to the customer, he will say, yeah, this product is great, but I don't know exactly what to do with this product, in which case you need to help them to implement. So that's exactly where the solutioning really comes into the picture. So these are the very simple things. On the surface, it really looks very simple enough, but when you really think through and then make decisions on with your sales teams as well as the marketing teams, it really becomes very challenging to decide one way or the other. So when we're really looking at product development and thus a product or a service, it's very easy to get into what we call as the product features and functions, and then a sort of roadmap. Even though has a bigger meaning, but for the sake of this discussion, I want to simply make it as a series of features and functions that we want to build for this product now and in future. So that's basically the roadmap that you are looking at, so that really helps you to showcase to your customers, your investors, your senior management, so that they know what to expect when you're building this product. So it could be multiple modules that you're developing, it could be multiple integrations that are coming in the future, whatever that may be, but a visibility of what's coming from your product in a line of 6 months to 1-2 years is always very helpful for the customer. But while doing that, what many of us really forget is, what is the product vision that translates to the product strategy, right? So from that standpoint, I'm sure probably, hopefully, all the companies have a product vision or the company vision, which translates then into the product vision and the strategy. And that is when the product strategy is really like a sort of roadmap that really guides you which way to go and what not to do in a way. And then you can make your own decisions on what that product roadmap really looks like. So it's really the point of saying it's okay to jump into the features and functions, but always take a step back and think about what is this product vision, who are the users that we are trying to solve the problems for, what are those problems, and then really look at what that product strategy really looks like, and then get into the nitty-gritty details like the features and functions. So this is one of the greatest thing that, for example, Jeff Bezos is always behind, which is when you want to create the innovation, don't expect the innovation to happen overnight, but it is a series of things that we do from the product strategy point of view, from the execution standpoint, and then how we use the technology within our products, whether it is the emerging technologies like your blockchain, IoT, or the mobile apps. But it really should, at the end of the day, help users, and then make sure that your customers come first, right? And then when you innovate, make sure that you are learning from those innovation cycles. What it really means is, just because you have created a cool technology and you did something really new, don't expect the users to really adopt it right from the day one. You learn from what you have released from the users, so that you can iterate on those technologies and the innovation as you go on. And one of the other learning that I really had was, when we're looking at product development and especially product management, it is very easy to get into the very details of what is the function, what is the functionality that I'm developing. Are we talking about the colors and the buttons, and what action should a button be clicked, where should the button be placed? So those are all very, of course, essential parts of the product management, but it is always like we need to take several steps back and then say, am I improving an existing functionality that I already have, or am I innovating something more, or am I disrupting a complete industry on its own, right? So you can really think of it really as disruption or transformative is really like, of course, the Amazon, the Ola cabs kind of example. So these are all the ones where everybody had these problems before, but nobody could ever disrupt that particular industry in a way that these companies did it. So that is really where you see the disruptive, transformative way of innovation, versus maybe some companies are doing, let's say, your product does one particular thing really well, but then as a part of your growth strategy, you said, okay, today I'm with, let's say, project management software, but then tomorrow I want to get into a risk management software. So in that case, what you're really looking at is innovation in terms of similar modules that you're developing, but it may not be the whole disruptive, transformative approach as well. But of course, I mean, just to make sure, by no means I'm saying one is better than the other or not, but it's really the question of saying, we want to really look at what kind of feature, module, disruptive innovation that we are looking at, and then based on that, the innovation cycles really change. That's really where we need to keep that in mind. Very briefly to touch upon, always be mindful and thoughtful of just because there is a innovation, there is a new technology out there, that doesn't necessarily translate to something that you can use in your products. For example, drones or IoT or whatnot, and there is, of course, a lot of hype that comes around, but at the same time, unless you try to bring that in the context of your product, it really doesn't help that way. this is something that I really love the way how the technology innovation happens. And the most favorite for me is this particular remote control, where I want more and more and more features. Yeah, sure. But at some point of time, you put in so many buttons on your remote control, you have no idea what your function is for that particular user. So that is really where we try to cram in more and more and more features, but at the end of it, when customer takes it, he doesn't really understand what this ever, how this ever solves their problem, right? So always be thoughtful about when you're developing a particular feature or function. Is it something that you're developing because a particular competitor has this functionality, and then a lot of your sales and customers are demanding for it? In that case, all that we are saying is they have a functionality, and then here is ours, something new, right? So from that point of view, it is not to say that it is bad to sort of be as there as a copycat, but there should be a valid justification from the customer demand standpoint, as well as the sales and the revenue standpoint, if you want to develop something that is not something new, but you are essentially trying to emulate from others. So one of the greatest thing that I vouch for is whenever we are developing products, feature sets from the product management standpoint, always be mindful that it's not about looking at the technology innovation, the innovation from the business standpoint, but please make sure that you are finding the right problem to solve. And that's really the core for you to always understand. It's not about the technology, it's not about the business innovation, but always see what is the problem that I'm trying to solve. Why is this problem important enough for a customer to pay for this feature set or a product? So from that point of view, I definitely encourage, if you haven't already, this mapping innovation is a great book from Greg Sattel, and I would definitely encourage you to read through that just to make sure there are a lot of nice frameworks and the way for you to really think about on why the problems set is more important than your innovation strategy or your ideas in general. Once you understand your problem, what you are trying to solve, and who are those users who has this problem, then everything else will follow through, and you'll be able to make better products instead of releasing a product and then trying to see who are those users, right? And of course, one of the very important aspect of building feature set, especially for those of you who are in the early stage products, is that it is very tempting to say that I want to innovate a lot of things, I want to partner with a lot of things, a lot of companies out there, and I want to really build some what do you call as the behavioral functionality into the product. But this Pyramid framework really tells you that the most important thing for any particular product is it solves a functional problem for the user. That's the most basic thing that you need to look at, whether whatever functionality that you're developing, does this solve a particular user's problem from end to end? As long as you are able to do that, that is really where we are talking about these functional features. And then once there are enough number of customers and users who are really looking at these functional features, then you get into the next level, which is really to say, okay, now that these users are coming to my product and they're using to do a particular function, how do I really make them come to my product again and again? So that's really where you're putting in a lot of these emotional features, which is simply to say, for example, you get an email saying that there is approval pending from your side, or a user is waiting for your feedback. So these are the kind of feedback features that we build in the product, so that it's not just about you logging into the system, but then you are actually making users to come to your system by these small nuggets, right? And then once you bring in those emotional features, then finally really comes to the ecological features, which is to say that now that I have my users who are using my product day in and day out, and it is helping them to solve a problem, and then now I want to help them by integrating with multiple products, let's say, right? So one of the very nice example of this one is, I'm sure probably some of you or most of you use Facebook, and in the first initial stages of Facebook, Facebook never integrated with anybody. There is nothing like a Facebook platform. All that Facebook really worked on was the feed, where you can simply go update what you are doing and add friends, converse with friends. That is really something that comes to the functional feature level, which is they are solving the human need to be connected with other humans, which is your friends and family, right? And then they really improved that with the whole of the notifications, and then emails, and then the SMS texts that you get. And then now, of course, I mean, it's much more bigger, where you have all these gaming platforms that you can play games on your Facebook, and multiple things that you can do, right? So it really, you have to start at the functional features level, where you really solve a particular user's problem, and then slowly go on. So again, just to make sure that this is not to say that they don't have a product strategy or a product vision, but once you get that product vision as to what in Facebook's case, it is really about making sure that the humanity is connected. So that is their product vision. And then the features really come down to support that particular product strategy and the vision from there onwards, right? So yeah, one other thing that we all need to slightly think about is slightly better products also win, even in the crowded market. And just to make sure we get the point out there quickly, I'm sure most of you have been using Zoom. WebEx has been pretty big in enterprise, GoToMeeting, Google Hangouts, and whatnot. But the point that many users, I'm not talking about the enterprises because that is a different thing, many users love Zoom, is they improved a couple of things. One, when you're there on Zoom, the quality of your network, the voice, the video, usually never drop at all. Number two, when somebody wants to record a the whole webinar series or the discussion that you're having on Zoom, it's a very simple way of just going there and simply clicking record, and everything works. And I'm sure probably some of the users who are there on the WebEx, if you have to record, you have to first dial into a particular number, and then you need to enter the password, and then it starts recording, which is probably a messier process. And last but not least, Zoom works great on your mobile phones, right? So you might say that all these are very simple things, but that's exactly the fundamental reason behind the products, where Zoom has been much more successful in probably a matter of 8 years compared to all the biggies when you compare to the companies like the WebEx, GoToMeeting, who have been in the industry for long, right? In the interest of time, I'll quickly skip through. So one thing that I really want, if there is one thing that you have to sort of take back home tonight, it is really about sprint, and then how do you test your ideas, right? I'm sure probably as a part of the agile methodologies and whatnot, everybody is aware of the sprint in general, but at the same time, the sprint that Google Ventures actually developed this particular methodology where instead of looking at a particular problem and then technology innovation cycle and then say, I need a big team, I want to develop a product, and then it takes about 6 to 9 months, and then at the end of it, you realize that it doesn't make sense, or the business problem is not there anymore. The idea really is, within 5 days, how do you empathize with a problem, develop the solution, and validate it in a 5-day cycle? So this is something very, very profound, because when you think about it, it is very easy to go to meetings and then keep on postponing that. Yeah, okay, this is a good discussion. Let's chat next week. Let's chat next week. And then many of the important decisions never gets taken, and then the project simply goes beyond a long cycle. But instead, if everybody is on same boat, saying that for this 1 week, we are going to, there is going to be a product manager, there is going to be a engineer, architect, there is going to be a sales and marketing leads from our organization. Everybody is sitting trying to understand who are those users that we want to solve the problem for, what are their needs, do we have enough data, do we have enough context onto what it is, and then make sure that you understand the problem space, the user space, the market, and everything, the day one. So think about this really as sitting in one room and then you are brainstorming from morning to evening, right? And then the moment you do that on day one, day two, it's really like, okay, you are envisioning what that solution could really look like. You're coming up with, so the reason why it is very different from day one to day two is day one, you are really, really there in the problem space, right? In the day two, you're really thinking about what could those potential solutions look like, right? And then the day three is when you would say, oh, you know what, out of these 10 ideas that I have, these 5 ideas are very, very, very costly for us to build and even test. So even though they are great, let's put them aside and then let's see from these other 5 ideas and solutions that we have on how we can implement them. And then on the prototyping standpoint, it is really the point to say, from the ideas that you have, I will do the prototypes and make sure that I will come up with some idea. The prototyping doesn't necessarily mean there is a technology behind it, there is integrations behind it, but it is simply, it could be simple mock-ups, wireframes, whatever that is. And then finally on the day 5, it's really about validating with the users. So whatever users that you thought on the day 1, those are the users that you want to validate on day 5, saying that, does this problem definition make sense to you? If certain kind of solution makes sense to you, what do you think we misunderstood? What do you think are the wrong ideas that we had? Can you help us? So really learn from that whole experience. Of course, you may not be able to do it the way Google does in 1 week time frame, but the idea is to really come back and say that based on your organization, what does it really make sense for us to quickly make sure that we start with the problem set, and then how do we validate our idea, right? That's really a profound framework for you to really keep thinking about. The one of the last ones over there is to say, you as a product manager, it is very easy to say, okay, here are the market requirements, here are the product requirements, here is the features and functions, and then document them, whether you do the traditional way in the Word documents, or probably much more in terms of Confluence or Jira, whatever that may be. The idea is to really say that you are working as a team with the engineers, architects, your marketing team, your sales team, and you are not really there guiding them or coaching them from far off, but you're really part of the team. So as long as you make sure that there is a way that you are influencing your engineering teams, your architects, your management team, you're in a good shape. But do not think of the product management as somebody who can simply throw in the requirements onto the engineer's bucket and then get them developed. So make sure that there is a lot of collaboration that goes in. Just move on. One of the last tidbits for you is most of us use PowerPoint, but really the innovative thing about the PowerPoint is it is not really from Microsoft. There was a company called Forethought that created PowerPoint, that too first for Mac users. And it became really famous during the time. And within a couple of years, Microsoft saw that as an opportunity, and then it bought the Forethought and thus PowerPoint into Microsoft. And then, of course, rest is a history. We all know PowerPoint to be the Office suite of products, but it really came from a different company, right? The reason this is very important for you to really think about it is there is something called as the bundling aspect of the products that you're working in. The real tipping point for the Microsoft and the PowerPoint itself came in when Microsoft basically said, there is going to be a bundling of all these Office suite of products, which is your Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and others. That is when really the usage of PowerPoint skyrocketed at that point of time. So keep thinking about how your product that you are developing also has a bigger impact when you combine with other products. So this one probably is the last one, which is really to say, before every product or a major functionality that you start to develop, make sure that you write a press release in a way that you are really going to give it to the press and it's going to get published, so that it really forces you to think about, how do I think about this product to the users, and then what are those features and functions that really I want to highlight once it gets released. This is something that Amazon really stands by, and looks like they're big proponents of these press releases, which is to say that, of course, I mean, they don't release this press release the day one of the product, but internally the product managers are encouraged to really do this press release, make sure that it really resonates with what you are trying to develop, because it really forces you to think through and then say, what are those benefits for the customers even before you start the product, right? So here is a nice quote that I really love, which is for the Amazon Web Services, it went through 31 drafts with Jeff Bezos on that particular press release, even before they developed the Amazon Web Services, right? So that's really where you see the power of forcing yourself to write these press releases in a way that it helps your team to say that, oh yeah, I mean, that really looks great, or maybe whatever benefits that you thought you would get, that doesn't really resonate well in the press release. So that means, do you need to make your product vision better, or do you need to make the press release better. So you will think through all those decisions that way. So with that, I think I will stop there and then make sure we have a couple of minutes to answer any questions out there. Shiva is asking how to elevate product strategy. So the idea really here is many organizations have these two orgs in a way, which is called product management or product design functionality function org and product strategy org. While I'm not a big fan of having two separate orgs within the product management, but the right way to do it is if your product is sort of small enough where the product manager can do both inbound aspects of it, which is to really working with the engineering team, making sure the documentation is done properly, making sure the training is done properly, and then also do the external aspects of it, which is to really attend your user conferences, the industry conferences, make sure you are always behind the customers to really understand how their problems are being met with your product or the solution, make sure you are helping the sales and the marketing teams. A product manager can do all these things together, but at the same time, be also pragmatic that as your product grows, you need a way for somebody in your org to actually focus on the external things, which is what I typically call as the product strategy point of view. So it's really, I mean, a point of view where the management will come to a path where the product team is not able to handle so many things that happen. And typically the biggest indicator for you is that either the requirements are being miscommunicated, or the customers are going behind, left behind with the new product adoption and whatnot. So that is really where you see that, okay, you need something and somebody to bridge this gap, and that is really where the product strategy comes in, right? The next question is really, how are the opportunities for product managers kind of roles in India as opposed to US and elsewhere? Yeah, so thanks for the question. Especially, I mean, I would probably answer, I would have answered it in a very different way had you asked me about the same question 10 years back. But in the last 6-7 years, in all the major cities in India, I've seen that a lot of startups are coming up, a lot of them, that is one. Number two, a lot of companies within India are developing products, which is a great sign. And everybody now realizes that product management is a integral aspect for any product development effort. For anybody to be successful, they have to have product management organization in terms of the products. That is where I absolutely see the product management role is very, very vital for especially the companies, small or big, in India or elsewhere. And that will only keep growing and increasing for sure. I will probably, I think, quickly go through all these questions if we are okay on time, Menaka?
Sure. We can do that.
Each company has different roles and responsibilities, which makes it difficult to apply for PM jobs. Any advice on that, please? So yeah, this is honestly a tricky question because some companies definitely have product management roles, but other companies may call it as business analysts, even though business analysts may not be exactly the product management role, but business analysts may be doing that essential part of some of these product management role, which is to really understand the problem space, to really define the use cases, to really work with the engineering and whatnot. So the business analyst probably is also a great role to look at. And then product owner is also a role that you might keep hearing, especially in the organizations where they are pretty big on the agile. So technically, I don't believe product owner and product management is the same, but there are some companies I do know they consider them to be the same. So in that case, you might want to also look at those kind of roles where it is product owner kind of roles, right? So you might want to just look at a combination of this product management, product owner, or business analyst roles. What is the right trade-off between pivoting on a product idea versus giving up too early? Is there a framework that you follow, or can you share an example from your experience? Sure. So the first part of your question really is, when do I sort of give up from an idea point of view? So that really, really depends on, I think, the organization, the team, and the opportunity itself. The reason why I say that is there might be some ways where you can say there is an idea, for example, and then to be specific, drones is something that I have worked very closely and is a very relevant example. And drones for us is very great technology where you can mount several IoT sensors onto the drones, make sure that you get the aerial views of the construction sites or maybe thermal imaging and whatnot. But the question really for me when I started with drone is, this is a great idea. I do know that there is a problem, but I have no indication on whether this will be successful with the customers. So what I really did was initially there was a lot of hype, and then all the customers are like, yeah, I mean, we definitely want to use the drone technology because think about it, right? Even customers sometimes they do not understand the true cost of approaching a particular problem, right? So, and then I did a small prototype with a couple of customers. I partnered with drone companies. And then probably within 6 months of time, there are multiple learnings that I had. One is to say that the drones is something that is a high value for the customers, but at the same time, it also costs tremendously for the customer. One, because there has to be, especially because of the regulation within US, there has to be a trained certified pilot who has to fly this drone. And that also means there is a cost involved for that training. The person has to be there when the drone flies. So there is a adoption problem that came in. So the whole idea over there is, it's not that we don't want to give up too early to say that, oh, this is just a hype and customers are not willing to accept it, but see the partnership, if there is a way for you to partner with the users, the customers, and then bring down the cost for yourself to do a prototype. I think that's really the way I would approach that kind of problem, right?
Sure.
What combination among the new product development or new customer development or new market development is the best suited for suitable profits and growth? Gotcha. Okay. So the question really is there one way or the multiple ways to really increase the growth in a way? So the one thing is keeping the current customer happy is the #1 priority for any product and organization. I'm saying that because at the end of the day, the cost of acquiring a customer is pretty high, and you don't want to lose a customer because you are not able to service them or handle them in a proper way. So what that means is, from the priority standpoint, definitely we have to make sure that the existing customers stay happy. Now the question comes in, what does it really mean? And what it means is, number one, we are developing the features and functionality in a way that helps them to grow. That is number one. Number two, making sure that the customers also becomes the advocates and the innovation partners with us. So what that means is, they will be using our products and solutions, but at the same time, they're also giving us the hints and the indications and the ideas on, yeah, sure, I want to grow with you, but at the same time, I need a different functionality, a different module, or a different product suite itself that helps me in my business. So that's really where you want to look at and grow along with your customers, so that at the end of the day, there is nothing like your current customers being the product advocates. So Atlassian, for example, I'm sure Atlassian, what I mean is Jira and the Confluence is a great example for that kind of strategy, where you typically see that they don't do too much of advertisement or sales at all. It is all about you and me, the users who are using Jira or Confluence. You would typically talk great about it, and then as a word of mouth, they really increase. So from that point of view, you would see that new customer development is important, but at the same time, it also complements the new market development that way. So PM should be aware of technology, but do they need to be technically good? That's a sort of, unfortunately, the answer would be it depends on the organization, because there are some organizations where the product manager is really business savvy. And what that really means is product managers really define the problem space, they define the user space, the use cases, the pricing, go-to-market strategy, the timing, and all those good things. And then they leave pretty much the solution space and the technology to the engineering teams. But at the same time, there are other type of organizations where product management is equally good at technology for a couple of reasons. Number one, when we are talking to the engineering teams, we have to make sure that they understand the problem space, they understand the technological aspects of it. But at the same time, more often, the technology that you choose, the solution that you choose, often affects your pricing, your implementation cycles, and whatnot. So from that standpoint, product managers should know, even if not about the exact technology. Let's say somebody need not know really about the React.js or Hibernate or Eclipse, for example, but they should understand, if I'm using a particular technology, does it increase my cost? Does it increase my chances of bugs in the future, and those kind of things. So as long as you look at the technology and the organization point of view, that really varies. As the technology is changing rapidly, what is the current time to market to make the product stays with the technology and meet current time to, okay. So I think probably we're really talking about the timing of the releases over here. So one of the reason where the SaaS and the cloud products and in general is high on the rise these days is exactly to solve this problem of, as the business is changing, as the technology is changing, we don't want to tell our customers that, hey, you know what, I will give you this technology, but wait for 1 year. I think nobody is going to accept that in the new era, right? So with the help of the SaaS and the cloud technology in general, that really allows us to really do the continuous integration, continuous deployment aspects of it. What it really means is, as long as you have the team in place where they understand the value proposition, it could be that you are providing these product updates every couple of weeks, every month for that matter. For example, I know many companies, and then we have done that in the past at Oracle ourselves, where a lot of mobile apps, for example, the updates are getting released every other week, because that is how much faster we can develop and release, right? So from that point of view, it really is, the time to market is really coming down drastically. And I would say a huge uptake is because of the SaaS in general. So the next question is, you said slightly better products do well in the crowded markets in SaaS based on the cloud products. What opportunities does Oracle have against AWS, Azure, Google? Great. So what it really happens for us is, there is always a customer base that we talk about. And as long as we are making our customer base happy and we are acquiring the customers, that really helps a lot from the customer acquisition standpoint of view. That is exactly where, I mean, in general, you would see that a lot of companies are taking on to multi-cloud support. What it really means is, we know that a one particular cloud may not really be the solution for all the customers. So that's really where you see the companies are adopting these multi-cloud approaches these days. The last one, keeping cost perspective in mind, clients might go for baseline products which doesn't come with a lot of customization. Is it good idea to sell baseline product with base cost, baseline plus customization with higher cost? Clients coverage advice. If both are available, clients coverage is addressed, but is it a good thought? So I think what the question here really is, we always keep talking about this tiered pricing in a way. So that's really where you see most of the SaaS products have things like basic, professional, and enterprise, right? So the whole idea over there is, the moment you say basic, maybe it is a freemium version of it. Somebody can start using it right away with the features that the product has. But then you know that maybe there is a integration that is required. Maybe you need to bring in the data from some other system that you have. So in that case, it's not as simple as me signing up to this feature set or the product, the base product I think you are referring to. So in that case, I need some help, some technology help, so that I can bring this in. So in that case, you might say, okay, I provide, along with the baseline product, I provide you some of these built-in integrations, and these built-in integrations come for free. So in that case, maybe if there is a business analyst, they will be able to simply do those integrations. But then let's say if there is an enterprise product suite, then this really needs a lot of customization. Maybe there is some coding involved. Maybe there's a lot of complications that are there. So in that case, you want to definitely tier that in a way that increases the adoption from the user standpoint of view. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do is, definitely you don't want to isolate the customers to say that I want to take this enterprise product, but I don't have any help. At the same time, there might be simple users where all that they are looking for is your baseline product. They are very happy to start configuring. It's very simple for them to configure. Maybe because there are only 10 users, that is good to go. So always, definitely keep thinking about that tired way of rolling out the product.